So this one may be for you fellas that are into history, for you, and also for you conspiracy theorist buffs out there. Um, this was something I was just, you know, ruminating over in my head and just thinking about it. And I was thinking about the past and how, the the spooks and the mob, was pretty much our dark side, and still to this day, our dark side to power. And as you can see in this title, it's the Gynocentric Industrial Complex. I'm not trying to sound like Ike or anything, but this shit is real. You know, um, I was thinking about how a lot of these files that are coming out from 60, 50 years ago, about the assassinations and stuff that have happened in the country, about 60 years ago. And you know to take power, you better start getting ready to take it. Don't ask to have that power. You got to take the power. And as fucked up as that may sound, and from what I'm looking at here in plain view, and with all these documents, photos, videos, and all of this shit, I'm like, you know, you got to take it. You got to take it. And I think that's true whether or not whether it's if it's for an altruistic cause or for a nefarious and selfish cause. Now, we as men going our own way are in a, you know, I've heard it being called a stopgap measure, and that's true. Some aren't meant to be for life. I do see a lot of MGTOW for life out there, and I thought about it that way myself. I mean, as it is now, I've been going on this path for quite some time. Some of you have put in a decade, some of you have put in a generation's worth of it, but that doesn't matter. What matters here is that you keep your eye on this thing called the gynocentric industrial complex. This is what I usually show you guys, in that I would put up the lowest common denominator, and you know what that is. And this is the leisure class, the leisure class of deception, we can call it. You know what I'm saying? The LCD. And I show you the generations in which they go through. But, we have seen the Epstein story come through, and, you know, this country has had a good 50-year head start in not trusting it. And we, the people, are capable of seeing what those that are rich and powerful can do, and will stop at nothing to maintain that power. Now, the gynocentric industrial complex is this. You know, I need to start doing this. The waves of feminism, start explaining them to you, because you may be new to the show, you may be new to my channel, and for those that have subscribed, that's quite all right. Go on ahead and bang that bell too. you know I ain't gonna bother you much. I don't put out too many videos a week. But the gynocentric industrial complex, all right, let's get into it. So there's the waves of feminism. Wave zero, that I usually say that wave zero was around the time of the Seneca Falls Convention. Susan B. Anthony is in this one. Then there's Wave One, the most talked about. Everybody say that this is where it started, and this is the Carrie Nations of the world. And those ones that were in the temperance movement, that put in those the gynocentric industrial complex work, because this was their first time ever manipulating the gears of power. And in that first wave, what we have is the 19th Amendment. And let's not also forget, around the same time, the Prohibition Amendment was passed here. you know. And many of us point to the 19th Amendment because, yeah, I mean that one is still in effect to this day. But the prohibition is another set of legislation that have you know started to solidify the GIC, right? So we go to wave two, and wave two looks a lot like these are the Betty Friedan. We start getting to Gloria Steinem. And that's another good thing to mention too, because around this time there would have been something called the Equal Rights Amendment. Some of you fellas already know where I'm going with this, but for those that don't know, let me go ahead and explain. Betty Friedan wrote a book called The Feminine Mystique. And and this right here is the foundation for a lot of the feminists that are still alive today. Um, but wave two, this would be the bra burners. And why I say bra burners, I'm talking about a lot of the Gloria Steinem. And keep in mind, and some of you may have forgot, but I'll go ahead and remind some of you. Gloria Steinem was the lady that had worked with the CIA doing some Operation Mockingbird type shit, you know. And she worked with the spooks as a CIA asset, and making the political personal and all that shit. But back to this Equal Rights Amendment thing, because her counterpart was Phyllis Schlafly. She was, I'll say, Karen Strawn before Karen Strawn, you know. So Phyllis Schlafly was among the conservatives. She was the traditionalist gynocentric and was, all in all against. She was in a way diametrically opposed to Gloria Steinem and those of her ilk. Also, let's not also forget that Equal Rights Amendment was going to make sure that every line item of rights, privileges, and responsibilities that men in America currently have, the woman would have it equal. Like, for example, you know, we still to this day are going to be inundated with commercials to get us to go to war. And if you don't do that as a man, keep in mind, you will not get financial aid for college. So I'll go ahead and let that out. And this is also why, society tends to propagandize getting into the military as a way to A, see the world, and B, get your education, and C, learn survival skills, of course, which is very useful and all. But when the Equal Rights Amendment was being written and they were about to pass it, what had happened with this was that they both came to an agreement. I know, silly, right? A left wing, brawl burning, you know, political personal Betty Friedan disciple, you know, and also CIA asset of Gloria Steinem was in agreement with this traditionalist, right wing, John Birch Society loving Phyllis Schlafly. And where they came to the agreement is that the Equal Rights Amendment should not be passed. And this is when they found out that their privileges and rights or whatever, if you were to put in an Equal Rights Amendment of that stature, they thought that females in America would lose their benefits because, yeah, the right wing woman knows it and the left wing woman knows it. You know, they know that no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, they still put women on a pedestal, and it's kind of crazy that those two diametrically opposed women knew that, and then they rejected it. Now we go into wave three, and this is usually tough to talk about. And this is where I usually get my pushback or arguments and stuff from. And this would be the wave of the talk show feminist, because daytime television was no longer soap operas anymore. You know, Donahue did his thing, and he had, you know, he blazed a path for all daytime television talk show hosts to go. And so the talk show feminists in wave number three, you'll have, and they're still working those levers of power even to this day. Oprah Winfrey, um, well, you could say so, but not so much. The Sally Jessy Raphaels of the world, but really, this is on Oprah Winfrey, and Oprah's on, and all this shit. And this happened a great deal in the 80s, throughout the 90s, the talk show feminists, right? And the programming that came from it was, you know, it was to uplift women, but then again, you know, a device to remind American women of the pride that should take into being who they are. And this is when the single mom craze got, really, it started to really skyrocket. Yeah, we know it started in other waves back before this, but this is when it really started to take off. So the talk show feminist, you got that there. All right. Now, wave number four. And wave number four is the one we're currently in. You know, this would be, how would I put this? The social media feminists. Whether it's that one that was the one that kicked off Gamergate, um, Anita Sarkeesian, some of those folks, and then Lacey Greens. And what happened to Lacey Green? Hmm, haven't seen her in a while. And then also to add to that, you have their diametrically opposed counterparts like Hannah Pearl Davis, Lady J, Diana Davison, Janice Fiamingo, Roma Army, and all of that. Yes, we expose a lot of them to be chameleons, right? Because they realized what benefits they had as a traditional right wing ish type of chick. And the left was, pissed because, you know, we in the manosphere where we would always point out the the slights that they would throw at us every now and again. But these two, and it's still the same as the past waves, two types of women. However, they both realize that they have a gynocentric foothold. And here pretty soon, we'll be seeing wave five. It's starting to cook. Um, that's what the comments are for. If you want to, if you want to offer to up me what the heck that is, let me know. But I thought I'd just bring out a little rumination before I get on up out of here. And um, I think I'm going to be doing a bucket now, with me starting this new job, and then also helping my brother out because he's going to be doing some roofing here. Um, I may or may not get after a bucket. So I just thought I'd throw an extra rumination here in the week so that, you, you stay good hygiene with the psyche. So, all right. So I think that'll do it. See you later, fellas.